This is the story of something really strange that happened to me a few years ago. I still get goosebumps when I think about it. It happened in a dollar store, not some creepy old mansion or an abandoned building, just a regular little store tucked between a laundromat and a pizza place. But what happened there? It still doesn't make sense to me. It was a cold evening in October. I had just gotten off work, tired and hungry. I remembered I needed a few things: batteries, dish soap, and some snacks. I didn't want to go to the big grocery store, so I stopped at this small dollar store near my apartment. I'd passed it 100 times, but never really gone inside. When I walked in, the first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. Too quiet. No music, no chatter, not even a bell at the door. Just silence. The shelves were a bit dusty, and some of the lights above flickered faintly. Still, it looked normal enough. There was a cashier at the counter, an older woman with gray hair tied back in a bun. She didn't smile or say hello. She just stared at me with these pale, tired eyes. I gave her a small nod and went deeper into the store. As I walked through the aisles, I started noticing weird things. Products didn't have labels, or they were written in strange letters, like symbols or a language I didn't recognize. Some food items looked off. There was a can of what looked like peaches, but the fruit inside was a deep red, like blood. I figured maybe it was some off-brand foreign product. Still, something about it made me uncomfortable, so I moved on. Then I noticed something else. The store seemed bigger inside than it looked from outside. I turned a corner, expecting the wall, but the aisle kept going. I thought maybe I had just misjudged the size of the store. I kept walking, thinking the batteries would be in the back. But the farther I went, the weirder things got. The lights above me grew dimmer. The shelves became less organized. I passed toys that looked handmade, almost too real. Like dolls with eyes that seemed to follow me. One of them had a stitched mouth, and I swear I heard a faint whisper as I walked by. I stopped and turned. Nothing moved. But that whisper, it was so soft, like someone was right behind me. I told myself I was just tired. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. So I hurried down another aisle, hoping to find what I needed and get out. But then I noticed something terrifying. There were no windows, no signs, not even exit signs. I couldn't even see the front of the store anymore. Just rows and rows of old shelves. I turned around to go back, but the aisle behind me wasn't the one I had come from. It was different. There were no snacks, no soap, nothing I remembered. Only shelves full of dusty picture frames, and every single frame had the same photo. Me, standing in the store, looking confused. I froze. My heart pounded. I picked up one of the frames and looked closer. It was me. Same clothes, same face, same confused look. I hadn't taken any pictures. How could they have this? Suddenly I heard footsteps, soft, slow steps coming from the next aisle over. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. I peeked around the corner. There was someone standing there. At first I thought it was just another customer, but something was off. The person's back was to me, and they were standing completely still. Too still. Their head was tilted slightly to one side, and their hands hung stiffly at their sides. They weren't moving at all. I called out, "Hey, excuse me, do you know where the front is?" No answer. I took one slow step back. That's when the person turned around. It wasn't a person. It looked like a mannequin. Its skin was pale and plastic-looking. Its eyes were glassy and wide. The mouth was stretched into a fixed smile, too big to be real. And it was wearing a name tag. My name. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat locked up. I just turned and ran. I didn't care. what aisle I was in anymore. I just ran. Past shelves that didn't make sense. Past frozen sections full of meat that looked like it was still bleeding. Past more and more of those picture frames. Every direction looked the same. Every aisle stretched too far. I felt like I was running. In circles. Then I saw something. Light. A small flicker of light at the end of one aisle. I ran toward it, pushing things off shelves, tripping over baskets. When I reached the light, I realized it was the cashier's counter. The old woman was still there, still staring. I shouted, "Where's the exit? I want to leave." She said nothing, just pointed at the register. I didn't understand. I shook my head. "No, I'm not buying anything. Just let me out," she kept pointing. So I looked. There was a small bell by the register, the kind you press at hotels. I slammed my hand on it. Ding! The sound echoed through the whole store, louder than it should have been. So loud it hurt my ears. And then suddenly, everything went dark. I opened my eyes. I was standing outside the store. The sun was rising. Birds were chirping. The street was quiet. The dollar store was gone. Not closed. Gone. In its place was an empty lot, full of weeds and trash. I stood there for 10 minutes, trying to understand. I even walked around the lot, thinking maybe I had the wrong place. But no, it was the right corner. The same pizza place, the same laundromat, just no store. I went home and didn't talk about it for weeks. I thought maybe I'd dreamed it. Maybe I'd had some kind of breakdown. But a month later, I found something. Under my bed, a picture frame with my photo inside. Me, standing in the store, looking confused. I burned it. I still don't know how it got there. So yeah, that's the story I'm going to tell you. I don't go to dollar stores anymore. And if I ever do, I make sure they have real windows, real people, and most importantly, I never, ever go alone. This is the story of something that happened to my friend Mark. I'm telling you because I was there when it started, but what happened to him later, I only found out after it was too late. It happened in the most unexpected place. A dollar store. I know that doesn't sound scary, but by the end of this, you'll never look at one the same way again. It all started on a rainy Wednesday afternoon. Mark had just moved into a new apartment on the east side of town. Cheap rent. Not the best neighborhood, but he didn't mind. He was the kind of guy who could sleep through a thunderstorm and eat cereal for dinner without complaining. That day, he called me up and asked if I wanted to hang out. I said sure, and we met at his place. After a while, he said he needed a few things. Dish soap, light bulbs, maybe a phone charger. There was a dollar store 2 blocks down the road, so we decided to walk there. We threw on jackets and headed out into the rain. The store looked old, with faded red letters above the door that just said Dollar Mart. I'd never noticed it before, and when I asked Mark if he had, he just shrugged and said, "Nah, but hey, it's cheap." The moment we stepped inside, the air felt strange. You know when you walk into a room and it feels like someone was just talking, but it suddenly goes silent? That's how it felt. The lights were buzzing faintly, flickering now and then. And the smell, God, the smell. It was like wet cardboard and old metal. But it wasn't strong enough to make us turn around. There was one other person in the store. A tall, thin man wearing a long black coat. He was at the far end, standing completely still in one of the aisles. We figured he was a worker or something. There was no music playing, no background noise. Just the soft hum of the lights. We started picking up what we needed. I joked about some of the weird brands they had. Soap-O-Magic, Zap-Lite, and a bag of chips called Cruncho, with way too many exclamation points. Mark laughed, but he seemed distracted. He kept glancing over his shoulder like he heard something. "Did you hear that?" he asked after a minute. "Hear what?" I replied. Whispering, he said. I swear I heard someone say my name. I rolled my eyes and told him he was just being paranoid, but I started feeling uneasy too. Every aisle we walked down seemed longer than it should be. We'd turn a corner, and instead of looping back to the front, it felt like we were going deeper and deeper inside the store. Then we passed the toy section. That's when things got weird. There were rows of dolls on a shelf, all with the same face. Pale, plastic, and smiling. But their eyes looked too real. And I swear to you, when I walked by them, one of them blinked. I stopped and stared at it. Mark said, "You saw that, didn't you?" I nodded. We backed away and decided we were done shopping. "Let's just go," I said. "We'll get this stuff somewhere else." But when we turned back toward the entrance, it was gone. No glass doors, no cashier, just more aisles, endless aisles. We looked at each other. Neither of us said a word for a few seconds. Then we started walking quickly, calling out, hoping someone, anyone, would hear us. "Hello?" Mark shouted. "Anyone here? We're trying to get out." That's when we heard it. Footsteps, not ours. Slow, heavy footsteps, coming from the aisle behind us. We turned, and there he was, the man in the black coat. But now we could see his face. It was wrong. His skin looked stretched too tight, like it was barely covering what was underneath. His eyes were pitch black like ink, and when he smiled, it wasn't friendly. It was hungry. "Don't go," he whispered. We ran. We turned corner after corner, but the layout made no sense. We were trapped in a maze of junk and shelves. We even dropped the basket we were carrying. We just wanted to get out. That's when Mark tripped. I grabbed him and helped him up, but his face had gone pale. "What?" I asked, out of breath. He held up something in his hand. It was a receipt, a long, crumpled receipt, with today's date. But the items listed on it were strange, not the things we picked up. No, it said, one soul, one name, one memory, one future, and at the bottom it said, "Thank you, Mark. Come again." He dropped it like it burned him. Then we heard something else. A voice, a child's voice, singing, softly. "Round and round the shoppers go. They never leave, they never know." We turned, and at the end of the aisle, standing perfectly still, was one of those dolls, life-sized now. We didn't stay to see what it would do. We kept running until finally, we crashed through a pair of double doors and tumbled outside. We were in an alley behind the building. The rain had stopped. It was night now, and when we turned around, the back of the store was boarded up, completely abandoned, like it had been that way for years. No lights, no door, no sign. We stood there in silence, trying to catch our breath, trying to make sense of it. Mark didn't say much after that. He was never the same. He moved out of that apartment a week later. Said the walls started whispering at night. He started drawing strange symbols. Said he saw things when he closed his eyes. Then, one day, he disappeared. I went to his apartment to check on him. The door was unlocked. Everything was there, wallet, phone, keys. But he was gone, and sitting on the table was that same receipt, same message, only now it said, "Transaction complete." I don't go near that part of town anymore, and every time I pass a dollar store, I feel that chill. I wonder if the aisles inside are as they should be. I wonder if there's a man in a black coat waiting at the end of one. And I wonder if another name is being added to a receipt somewhere. So if you ever walk into a dollar store and the lights flicker or you hear whispering, turn around, walk out. Don't go deeper. Don't let it know your name. Listen carefully, because this is the story of something I heard from my cousin Emma. It's one of those stories you don't want to believe, but after she told me, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It happened at a dollar store. Yes, the kind where everything is cheap and you expect nothing but small deals and maybe a few weird products. But what Emma went through, that dollar store was anything but normal. Emma moved to a small town a few years ago looking for a fresh start. She had just finished college and found a job nearby. One evening, after a long day, she needed a few things: cleaning supplies, some snacks, and a cheap notebook for work. She decided to stop at the local dollar store, called Budget Mart, because it was close and open late. When Emma got there, the store looked a little run down. The paint was peeling off the walls, the glass door had a big crack, and the sign flickered. But she wasn't worried. She needed the stuff, so she went in. The moment Emma stepped inside, she noticed something strange. The store was almost empty. Not just a few empty shelves, but whole sections were bare. The air smelled musty, like it hadn't been cleaned in weeks. No music, no other customers, just silence. At the counter, a man was standing. He looked old, with thin gray hair and eyes that seemed dull, almost lifeless. He didn't say a word, just nodded slightly when Emma walked by. Emma grabbed a small basket and started walking through the aisles. As she passed the cleaning supplies, she noticed some bottles had labels that made no sense. Words were misspelled, or completely wrong. One bottle said "dangerous wash" with a skull drawn on it. She smiled and put it back. Probably a joke, she thought. But as she moved further, the lights started flickering more violently. The shadows around the shelves grew longer, darker. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. Then she heard it. A soft sound, like whispering, coming from the back of the store. She stopped, listening hard. It was too quiet to make out words, but it sounded like someone was calling her name. Emma, Emma. She shook her head, telling herself it was just her imagination, maybe the wind or the old pipes. Emma went to grab some snacks near the back, but when she turned the corner, the aisle looked different. Instead of chips and candy, the shelves were filled with old photographs. Black and white pictures, mostly. Faces of people she didn't recognize. Some were smiling, some looked scared. One photo caught her eye. It was of a young woman who looked a lot like Emma, standing in front of a store that looked just like this one. The bottom had a date, 1973. Emma's heart started pounding. Suddenly, she felt a cold breath on her neck. She spun around, but no one was there. Then the lights went out completely. For a moment, Emma stood frozen in the dark. Then, faint red lights started glowing from the shelves. The photographs on the walls began to move, faces shifting, eyes blinking, mouths opening in silent screams. Emma dropped her basket and ran toward the front of the store. But the aisles twisted and turned strangely, like a maze. Every path she took led her deeper inside. She called out for help, but only the whispering answered. Emma, Emma. Her phone was dead. No signal. Then she heard footsteps behind her, slow and steady. Emma ran faster, feeling hot breath on her back. She turned to look and saw the old man from the counter. But his eyes were black pits, empty and endless. His smile stretched too wide, showing too many teeth. "Welcome back," he said in a voice that sounded like gravel. Emma screamed and pushed past him. She found herself in front of a large mirror that wasn't there before. She looked into it, hoping to see her own reflection, but she didn't. Instead, she saw a woman trapped inside, banging on the glass, begging for help. The woman's face was pale and terrified, just like the one in the photo. Emma reached out to touch the mirror. Her hand passed through like it was made of smoke. Then the whispering grew louder, more urgent. "Join us?" Emma stumbled back as the old man moved closer, his hands reaching for her. In desperation, she grabbed a metal shelf and swung it at him. The man vanished into a cloud of black smoke, and the store lights flickered back to normal. Emma didn't waste time. She ran for the exit and burst out into the night air. The store door slammed shut behind her. Outside, everything looked normal again. The street, the cars, the quiet town. But Emma never went back. She told me later that night, she checked the local library's old newspapers and found out the store was built on the site of a fire from the 1970s. A young woman had died in the fire, burned alive inside the building that once stood there. People said her spirit never left. Emma showed me the photo she took with her phone before the battery died. A blurry, ghostly image of that woman staring back at her. That dollar store? It's been closed for years now, boarded up and forgotten. But sometimes when Emma drives past it at night, she says she can still hear the whispering. Emma, Emma. And she knows one day it might call for someone else, maybe you. So if you ever find yourself near an old, quiet dollar store that looks like it's seen better days, just keep walking. Don't look back. Don't stop. Because sometimes cheap prices come with a heavy price to pay. It's called the True Dollar Store Horror Story, and it's one of those tales that starts out ordinary but twists into something you won't forget. This story happened to my friend Sarah. She's the kind of person who's curious, but also practical. One rainy Saturday evening, she needed to grab a few things. Cleaning supplies, batteries, and some snacks, and decided to stop by the local dollar store called Value Mart. It was near her apartment, open late, and cheap, so why not? When Sarah arrived, the store looked normal enough, if a bit tired. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, and the parking lot was almost empty except for one old pickup truck. The door had a creak as she pushed it open. Inside, the smell was sharp, a mix of plastic, dust, and something faintly metallic that she couldn't place. Sarah grabbed a small basket and began browsing the aisles. The shelves were stocked, but some items looked odd. She picked up a box of batteries and noticed the brand name was misspelled. Batteries instead of batteries. She laughed quietly to herself and put it back. Then she heard it. A soft thud from the back aisle. She stopped and listened. Nothing. Just the flickering lights overhead. Shrugging it off, Sarah moved deeper into the store. The deeper she went, the more the store seemed to change. The aisles looked longer, the shadows darker, and the overhead lights flickered more often. Her footsteps echoed loudly. Suddenly, she passed a rack of old magazines. Something caught her eye. A magazine with her own face on the cover. The headline read, "Missing, Sarah Collins. Last seen entering Value Mart." Her heart skipped a beat. "That can't be right," she whispered. She flipped through the pages. The story was a detailed report about her disappearance, dated 2 weeks ago, but she was standing right there, alive. Confused and unnerved, Sarah dropped the magazine and hurried to the front of the store, but the entrance was gone. Instead of doors, there was a solid wall covered in peeling wallpaper. Panic started to rise. She ran back down the aisles, but each turn led her deeper inside, not closer to the exit. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. It was dead. No signal. Then, from the darkness between the shelves, she saw a figure emerge. It was a man wearing an old, faded uniform, like a security guard. His face was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes were dark holes. He smiled slowly, showing crooked teeth. "Lost?" he asked, voice dry and cold. Sarah tried to back away, but the man advanced. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The keeper," he said, "of the store's secrets." Sarah looked around, trying to find a way out, but the aisles seemed endless. The man spoke again. "Everyone who comes here stays. on the shelves, frozen in time. Suddenly, Sarah noticed something chilling. Around her, on the shelves, were mannequins, dressed in everyday clothes, frozen in frozen poses. She recognized some of the faces. People who had disappeared from the town over the years. One mannequin even wore a jacket that looked like her brother's. The keeper reached out a hand. "You'll join them soon." Sarah's mind raced. She needed to escape. She grabbed a metal rod from a broken shelf and swung it at him. The keeper dissolved into smoke, but the store began to shake and groan. Lights flickered violently. The mannequins twitched. Sarah ran through the maze-like aisles, dodging falling products and collapsing shelves. Finally, she spotted a faint light, the exit. She sprinted toward it, burst through the doors, and fell onto the wet pavement outside. Gasping for breath, she looked back. The dollar store was gone. In its place was an empty lot, overgrown with weeds. Sarah never went back. She told me this story after months of silence. She was terrified but alive. The next day, she checked the local news. A dollar store had burned down in a fire exactly 2 weeks before, the same date on the magazine. No bodies were found, and every now and then, people in the town say they hear whispers around the empty lot, voices calling out names like lost shoppers trapped forever. So if you ever find yourself inside a dollar store that feels too quiet, with flickering lights and strange shadows, don't ignore your instincts, because some stores don't just sell cheap things, they sell nightmares, and sometimes they never let you leave. This is the true story of something that happened to my friend Jake. He's a regular guy, never believed in anything spooky or supernatural until that night. This is the true dollar store horror story he lived through, and trust me, it's the kind of tale that will make you think twice before stepping inside one of those bargain shops. Jake had just moved into a new apartment complex in a small town. The place was quiet, peaceful. Too peaceful, he thought sometimes. One chilly Friday evening, he realized he was out of essentials. Toilet paper, some snacks, and batteries for his old flashlight. So, he decided to walk over to the nearest dollar store called Saver's Stop. It was about a 10-minute walk, and it was still open, so he thought it was perfect. When Jake arrived, the store looked like any other discount shop on the outside. The neon sign buzzed a little, and the windows were fogged up. But the front door was locked. Strange. He pushed harder, locked tight. Jake thought maybe they closed early, but then he noticed the side door slightly ajar. He pulled it open and stepped inside. The inside was dark. The only light came from flickering fluorescent bulbs overhead. It smelled old, like dust mixed with something sharp, almost like chemicals. He called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" No answer. Jake shrugged and began walking down the aisles, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The shelves were filled with random things, cleaning products, cheap toys, canned food. But some items looked off. A box of cereal had a cartoon character with empty black eyes. A pack of batteries had the words "Last Forever" written in red ink. He chuckled nervously, trying to ignore the weird feeling creeping up his spine. Then, as he reached for a pack of toilet paper, he heard it. A soft scraping sound from the back of the store. Jake froze. "Hello?" he called again, his voice shaking. No reply, but the scraping grew louder. It sounded like nails on metal. He thought maybe it was a rat or something. Trying to stay calm, he moved toward the back. The scraping stopped suddenly. When Jake turned the corner, he saw an old wooden door, partly open. Beyond it, the back room was dark, filled with broken boxes and dusty shelves. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind him. Jake spun around, heart pounding. He pulled at the door, but it was stuck. Then the lights went out. Complete darkness. His breath came out fast and shallow. He fumbled for his phone, but no signal. The battery was low and the screen barely lit up. Then, in the faint light, he saw them. Faces. They weren't real faces, but images projected onto the walls and shelves. Ghostly faces of people, twisted in fear, mouthing silent screams. Jake's skin crawled. Suddenly, the scraping noise came back, closer this time, circling him. He tried to back away, but the room seemed to shrink. Then he saw a figure. A woman, standing near the door. She wore an old-fashioned dress and had long, dark hair hanging over her face. Her skin was pale and cracked like old porcelain. "Help me," she whispered. Jake wanted to run, but he was frozen. "Don't leave me here," she said, voice trembling. He asked, "Who are you?" "I was trapped here years ago. This store, it's not what it seems. It feeds on people's fear and traps their souls." Jake's heart felt like it might burst. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you saw the door, and now you're part of the story." Suddenly, the door creaked open. Jake didn't hesitate. He sprinted out, the woman's faint scream chasing him. Back in the main store, the lights were flickering wildly. The shelves shifted and moved, like the store was alive. Jake dashed through the aisles, dodging falling boxes and broken glass. At the front entrance, the old pickup truck he saw earlier was gone. Instead, the door he came through had vanished. In its place was a wall covered in strange symbols, glowing faintly. Panic clawed at Jake's throat. He turned and saw the woman again, her face clearer now, full of sorrow and anger. "Stay with us," she whispered. Jake grabbed a broomstick and swung it at her. She dissolved into smoke. Suddenly, the store shook, and the wall fell away, revealing the exit. Jake ran through the door and out into the cold night air. He looked back once. The store was gone. In its place was a burnt-down lot, blackened and empty. Next day, Jake told me everything. He checked the town records and found out the dollar store burned down in a fire decades ago, killing several people, including a woman who looked like the ghost he saw. No one had rebuilt on that lot since. Jake never returned. He still hears whispers in the dark when he's home alone, soft voices calling his name. And sometimes, when he passes the empty lot, where the store once stood, he swears he sees flickering lights behind the trees. So remember this, some places aren't just old stores, they're prisons for the lost, and once you step inside, they might never let you leave.